welcome to She's Possible panel discussion and happy Women's History Month. I'm Naglia de Ravine, CEO and founder of WomELLE. Thank you so much for investing your time with us today. Before we get started, here is a quick background about WomELLE. I started WomELLE in 2016 to help and support women to launch new businesses. Since then, we provide small business women with guidance, tools, and resources required to start and grow a business. In 2017, we launched WomELLE magazine as a print and digital publication focusing on women in business and leadership. In 2020, we changed the magazine name to WomELLE magazine with the same focus but to its own media platform. If you ever need help to grow or start your business, please feel free to reach out. You can learn more about WomELLE at www.womelle.com. A very big thank you to our panelists, President Virginia Harris, Mary Crafts, Christina Wise, Carmen Lundy, and our host, Margo Lovett, for taking the time out of the busy day to come together and share with you their knowledge. I am very excited to bring a panel that is a great example of true women collaboration. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Margo Lovett, creator and host of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation, and founder of Podcast Academy Online. Welcome, Margo, and thank you for your collaboration.
I am very, very happy to be here. As a matter of fact, I've had an opportunity to have a conversation with each and every one of these fabulous women on my podcast. And I feel as though I know each and every one of them, how they have really poured into women across the nation, across the globe. So before we begin, today we do have a series of questions that these ladies are going to answer. I expect a lively conversation. I really, really do. One that is full of respect and, like I say, a lively conversation. So let's start out with President Virginia Harris. She is the president of the national president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. And well, you know what, I guess I should go around and everyone just wave your hand so that everyone knows who we are, since this is going to be kind of a jump in as you want to get into the conversation. That way everyone knows. So President Harris, wave your hand. She is the national president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. And then we have Christina Wise. Oh my goodness, when she was on the show, what a transparent story of moving from one phase of life to the next and how you have to take care of yourself. She teaches us about money and taking care of ourselves. Christina Wise, will you just kind of wave your hand, please? And Mary Crafts, she told me how she built an empire from a wagon onto being able to serve presidents. I mean, several presidents. And she calls herself, and it's okay for me to say that, she calls herself a badass, and we really, really are. So Mary Crafts, a lot of fun, and wave your hand, please. And we have Carmen Lundy. This woman rendered me speechless when we had our conversation. I've been listening to her music. She is a jazz artist, jazz vocalist, an artist, Grammy-nominated artist, as a matter of fact, one and only Carmen Lundy. All right, ladies, let's get started. The first question, and let me set it up. WomELLE was birthed out of a desire for women to grow together in strength. As women of influence, how do you nurture? How do you mentor? How do you inspire other women so that they can abound in strength and growth? And President Harris, can we start with you, please? Oh, you're muted, President Harris.
Thank you very much. First, let me say that I am honored to be a participant on this distinguished panel, inspiration coming in so many forms. And I love connecting with inspirational women who are doing amazing things professionally and in the African American communities. I'm also honored to lead an organization that is made up of thousands of influential and inspirational Black women from around the country. NCBW is about empowerment. We advocate on behalf of Black women and girls when it comes to gender equity, health, education, and economic empowerment. As a national organization, we share our stories to inspire other women and girls, and we lift them up so that they can thrive in success. Personally, I make a conscious effort each and every day to connect with the people our organization serve. I like to put a spotlight on ambitious Black women and girls who want to dream big and achieve their personal and professional goals and staying true to themselves. I always tell women and girls not to limit themselves. In my role, I help them figure out what they want by being aware of all the things they can do, evaluating all the available options. I'll remind them that there is no one path that works for everyone, that they can design their own path and make it work as long as they are confident, hardworking, and willing to give it their all.
No one path. There's several ways to get to success. Is that what I hear you say?
Exactly.
Wow. Mary Crafts, will you elaborate on that? How do you take one slice of life when it's time to nurture someone? You're coming from the catering industry, which is a huge and very, there are a lot of people who call themselves caterers. But when you are taking people under your wing, do you just show them one part of the industry? How do you move into this thing of nurturing other women?
I just love that concept of nurturing. I think that from the get-go, it's one of the reasons why I loved leading, is because it gave me so many opportunities to do that, put my arms just around people. And the more I could show them about my style of leading would help them develop their own personal style of leading. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm from Utah. And we were a long time giving up the good old boys club here in Utah. And we're still working on it. So I always try to lead with my people, my staff, with those people around me, obviously by example, but by inclusion most of all. And so whatever I was involved with, I made sure that they were involved with and gave them opportunities. I think as women, at least for me, who I'm 67. So when I stepped into the CEL realm nearly 40 years ago, there weren't such things as women CEOs. And so when I stepped in that world, I felt like, dang, I got a little feather in my cap. I'm good, you know. And then I had to realize, oh, that's not enough. I have to help others. I have to bring them along. I have to put my arm around them and show them the way. And there were so many times, as you can imagine, in this good old boys club, that I was the only woman in the room, seated at the board table, at someone else's boardroom. And the first time some woman walked in, I felt, wait a minute, this is my spot. And then I recognized that feeling inside of me, that piece of jealousy. Like, wait a minute, I fought hard to get here. Have you paid your dues to get here? That's not, as women, that's not nurturing. That's not inclusive. We need to have each other's backs. We need to bring each in, support each other. I love that song, you know, by Bette Midler, the wind beneath my wings. That's what I love to be for other women. Even now I'm retired, I still spend every day empowering women and bringing them along and showing them and nurturing them, giving them opportunities so that I can be the wind under their wings.
I find that fascinating that you would admit that streak of jealousy when, there's another woman in the room. Did she pay her dues to get here? But that's only natural. Wouldn't you say, Mary?
I would. I think we all have those things, and it really doesn't have anything to do with jealousy. It has to do with fear. That if another woman has come into the room, does that make me less than? Because am I enough to compete with her? And when you finally realize it has nothing but to do with fear, then you can let go. Dang, I'm not going to be ruled by fear. I'm going to be ruled and have my life motivated by love. So I'm not afraid of this woman. I love this woman. And when you realize that, it makes it much easier to just embrace them and bring them along and lift them, because the rising tide raises all ships.
Mm. Krisstina, I see you nodding your head. I see all the panelists nodding their head, and everyone's coming from a different industry. But Krisstina, I know that you've experienced that coming from corporate and real estate. So do you want to elaborate on that? What from your vantage point, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I'm really jumping off where Mary left off a little bit with, growing up as a kid, I was, from the wrong side of the tracks. And I was always excluded, and I was gossiped about, and I was pointed at by other girls, and laughed at. And it made it very difficult for me for a big part of my life to even trust women and girls, because they were so mean, And so I actually preferred being in a man's world and just being business as usual, and kind of same thing as Mary, like nobody's going to get in my way, type of thing. And then it was really with having my daughter that wanting her to just build up with confidence and have, all the opportunities and not have any limited mindset just based on, her gender, and just seeing her grow into becoming a young woman at 24, and how just uplifting her and how she's taking on her roles. And it just opened me up to just then trust women differently, that I wanted to lead and be included. I was following in the same footsteps. I was being very exclusionary because, that's all I knew. And when I reverse that, now nothing is more beautiful than this group of incredibly strong, bright, successful, ambitious, loving, courageous women. And we're in it together, supporting each other. I'll do anything to help women excel, and then see their light and on stage and just, revere in that type of glory of seeing women shine. And so it's such a different place to come from. And I love my women's groups. I love collaborating. It's a totally different energy than it is to be competitive, and that, what that used to be. So again, I'm just so honored to be here amongst this group. If I can ever serve as an inspiration of what, I've been able to do from where I've come from, that for other young girls and young women, or any women for that matter, nothing makes me happier. So anyway, we are so powerful. The feminine power is so beautiful and collaborative, and arm to arm when we get us together, and we can do so much more together than we can apart. So yeah, like this fills my heart.
So what I hear you say is, when we can trust each other, then that's when we can let go and we can really blossom. All of us can blossom. Is that what I hear you say, Krisstina?
100%. Thank you, Margo.
Carmen, you have traveled the globe. I remember you telling me that there was a time when you really had to hustle to be able to get gigs, so that people could hear you, so that you could get exposure. So I know that this thing of not trusting other women, or nurturing and bringing others along. So will you elaborate and come from it from the entertainer's point of view, from the creator's point of view?
Well, I'm not sure where to start, but I can, as I listen to everyone, and thanks so much again for inviting me to join you all. I'm very taken aback by the fact that I'm actually part of this esteemed group of incredible women. The first thing that comes to mind for me is my mom. I think of my mother, and then I think of her mother. And then I see my father's mother and his grandmother. And I sort of see myself as a version of them, because the example, those formative years that we all reflect on, the formative years, when when you're 5, 7, your earliest memories, your motivation, who's the motivation? I can think of, just as I think of my mother, who was an incredible woman. I'm the oldest of 7. So I kind of was there for the whole, all the kids coming along thing, and experiencing that, how the responsibility at this end was different from the responsibility of that end. But I also think of my teachers. I think of that grades, I think first grade, and maybe there was something cool about that lady because she had a long braid and she wore a sari, and she was the only not Black person in the entire school that I went to, So that was, and then it was a music class, and her way of teaching, but also not, you don't have the sense that you're in school. You're in fun. You're like in this fun place. But I can recall wanting to satisfy those goals that they set for me, because I was too young to know that I had goals. But I can think of the teachers that came along in my adolescent years, the women that were there, that were just the trust you're talking about, and how that combination of the learning experience with the energy of that instructor and their femaleness, I won't say femininity, but their femaleness. And there's a nurturing part of this that I'm talking about that I think I call on more often than I realize when it comes to assisting young people in realizing their dreams. There's that nurturing part. So for me, coming from a family of strong, incredibly strong women and men, but the women, the glue, the heart, the core, the essence of the family, the spirit of the family. So I took that with me, and that replaced my fear going into making a life as a musician. So everything became about almost like myopic, almost fearless, because that's all I knew. All I knew was fearless women. Women who would stand up to physical abuse from their husbands. I witnessed that as a child. It's a horrific thing to live through. And if you can find a way to look at those experiences as not reasons to feel defeated or that you can't, but to look at them as reasons reasons to follow your dreams. Most of my experience has to do with that motivation. Most of my accomplishments, I think, have to do with the inspiration, and then the education along the way, but always looking back on how did my mother get through this, and how did my grandmother ever put 2 pieces of cloth together to decorate a home. You know what I mean? So all of these things are the examples I draw on whenever I feel a challenge, present or past or immediate, including the loss of family. Yes. All of those things are, I think I deal with them based on more example than now, of course, I've lived long, and I'm 67 too. I think I'm going to be 67 again. Oh my God. So I think that the message for me as an artist is to know that there is the example that's always preceding me, whether I want it or not, whether I want this experience or not, it is what I've been given. So to see it as a precious gift and just to allow it to manifest in a way that the example is that in and of itself can be as inspiring to others and to other young women, to other young people who don't quite understand that the struggle and the problem solving is also a part of life.
You said a mouthful. It is a part of life. Do you ladies, and it's not one of the questions that we submitted to you all, but that's very important, I believe. And I want to ask each and every one of you, how important is it to expose those that we are mentoring, those who are watching us on our daily basis, our children, our family members, our colleagues? How important is it to actually just be transparent, to draw on the strength of who we are, how we are, and present that every day so that people can know, like, and trust us, believe in us, follow us. And so if I'd like to present that to each one of you all, just a quick, I'm just very, very curious about that. President Harris, you have something to say concerning that
Well,
thought?
yes, I do, Margo. When you asked the question, I was thinking about reflecting on from a poem that I enjoy sharing and listening to from one of my favorite poet laureate, that's Maya Angelou. And she stated that if you're going to live, leave a legacy, make a mark on the world that cannot be erased. So I always like to share that with young people so that they understand that their legacy is just as important as women who have made a lot of history throughout the decades are. And I want them to understand how important that is.
Got you. And the fact that the NCBW is very, very strong on transparency and leadership. When we've had 2 conversations, and I gleaned from each conversation the fact that you are out to build strong leaders, and the leadership in each chapter, they are very authentic women because they know that it's authenticity that's going to build the leaders, those ladies that are coming behind us, the ones that are at our sides. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think it is our responsibility to make sure that these organizations we represent are intergenerational. These are the young women whom we should be training to make sure that things are sustainable and they can maintain the integrity of the organization and keep missions and goals that help and represent Black women and girls.
Gotcha.
Be another 40 years. We will be 40 years old in October of this year. And in order for us to maintain and sustain the organization, we must take the time to nurture, train, and be transparent with the young women that are coming behind us.
It's almost
I love
like
what one of the panelists said, that it is our responsibility to not be afraid, to not be fearful when there's other people in the room. We've got to embrace them and let them know that we care and we love them as well.
Well said. Well said. Mary Crafts, when it comes to transparency and you're working with those, you are nurturing and mentoring those, how important is that in your industry? How important is that to those in your sons, your grandchildren? How important is all of this?
Yeah, I think that principle of transparency is one that I exhibited actually as I answered my first question. And it's that act of what I call vulnerability, of being able and willing to be naked in front of people, in front of your family, in front of your staff, in front of your network of people. And you are willing to show where your weaknesses are. And that growth does not happen in a closet where you are hiding. But growth begins the moment hiding stops. And so that transparency becomes vital as you're trying to first empower yourself, and next as you're trying to empower others. I think that the best way to do that, to teach that, there's only one. There's only one way to teach that, and that's to first start with yourself. You have to be willing to bear it all. As you know, Margo, on podcasts, as you were on my podcast, we have an opportunity every week to be out there like, aren't I perfect? Look at me. Or do we have an opportunity to be out there and say, this is what I'm struggling with. How about you? This is what I'm working on. How about you? This is where I'm at. And the more that I find out, because I can track the number of people that are watching and downloading my podcast every week. You know how that works. And the ones where I am completely naked, showing every scar, wrinkle, flab piece that I got. People love them. The more I try and be perfect, people aren't interested in that. And we love now That's our favorite word in society, I've decided, is narcissist. We just latched onto that. And we love to throw it around. Oh, they're such a narcissist. Oh, she's a narcissist. And social media is full of them. I will say it's one of my favorite pastimes, just to scroll Instagram and watch the number of people who are on there just going, oh yeah, baby, I'm so fabulous, woo woo, and they're doing this dance. I'm like, who cares? Why are you doing this? So for me, the key to this, the key to saying, am I a narcissist or someone else, is motivation. Where's your heart? I'm on Instagram a lot, but I'm not there to say, look at me, how great I am. But look at what's possible. I'm trying to be vulnerable in front of people of where I've been, still what I'm struggling with, so that they understand at deep levels that it's never, never too late, and that nothing is impossible. And they only see that as women such as us who have the courage to stand up and show the way.
I'm going to applaud you on that. I feel that that's where I live also. We have to be transparent. We can't, especially as podcasters, people are watching us all the time, listening to us. So Krisstina, this takes me over into perfection, being a perfectionist and a narcissist, this narcissistic society that we do live in, and being the best, what that does to our health. Will you elaborate on that rat race and maybe give us some insight into how you know this so well?
Yeah, I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And, up until I got sick and got taken to my knees, I was so ashamed of my failures and from where I came from that nobody knew that. And I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't really know myself. And I had so much darkness that was deep inside me and buried, that because I couldn't admit it, I couldn't be me, because I hid all of that, what I thought was ugliness. And getting sick really forced me to come to terms with all my shadow and dark and mistakes and bad doings, and I was so afraid to come out and be truthful and be transparent and authentic and tell my story. But I just knew I had to, for me to be healthy, for me to be real, for me to be the best me, I had to be whole. I couldn't just present part of me. And that was a significant part of my healing journey, was to accept the pieces about me that I was ashamed of. And that type of empathy for myself allowed me to empathize with everyone, and before, I think I put myself on a little bit of a pedestal, a better than way to try to replace the true feeling of less than. And now it's just as part of our life story. And I just want to say thank you to all the women here, and because you gave me so much courage by being examples of what's possible, the strength, the resiliency, the overcoming these obstacles. And if you weren't transparent and vulnerable, then it wouldn't have given me the permission or this feeling, the safety to do that for myself. And just so many women have worked so hard to pave the way for some of us that are, maybe a generation younger. And then for me to pave the way for, even that next generation. But yeah, authenticity, and again, with what Mary said, that, especially with social media, everyone's just showing the perfect life. It's the highlights reel, and it's not real. And at the end of the day, depression and anxiety and suicides and all these things are higher than they've ever been, because I think there's this illusion that, some people have life figured out and they're perfect, they're beautiful, they've all got it going on. And the truth is life is messy, and to show how we've overcome these obstacles, that's what's inspirational. People couldn't relate to me before. I wasn't relatable because, again, I just showed this success side. But now, the resonance comes from, wow, you've been through that too? Oh my God, and you made it through? That means I can also. So yeah, the authenticity and transparency is crucial. And then for all us to love and support, each other in the good times, but especially in the down times. It's like, sister, I've got you. You can fall. I've got you. Just do what you need to do. And, you'll be safe. You've got, you've got your tribe. We're here. And that's what gets us all through, is when we can be there together in the best of times and in the worst of times.
You ladies are fabulous. I feel like a kid in the candy store. I am just dining on each and every answer here. I really am. One other question that I have for you, and I'm watching the time because I want to make sure that people are able to ask questions. I hear all of you all say at one point or another, you gave yourself permission to think a certain way, behave a certain way. Each one of you, and we'll start out with Carmen Lundy. Speaking to the women watching, the ones coming behind us, what would you say to them? Give yourself permission to, I'll just, for example, I would say, give yourself permission to reinvent yourself. That's just what I would tell a person. That's what I tell people all the time. Give yourself permission to reinvent yourself and become the best version of you. But from each one of you ladies, I'd like to hear, just speaking one-on-one with someone, what would you tell them? Give yourself permission to ...
Well, this is really kind of it's good for me to have a conversation like this because in my practical day to day, say in the last, well, we've been in lockdown for the last year, but the nature of my work is such that it's 98% male dominated, okay? From the very outset of that point where I decided I'm going to make myself what I want to be. I'm not going to rely on someone. This whole idea of being discovered, those things you hear all the time. But I think that because so much of my interaction was not with women, and I had similar experiences as you, when another woman would enter, when another female musician would enter, it was like, okay, yes, this is instant friendship. We must do something together. And that's all I want to do. I'm so happy to see you. You know what I mean? Because I'm always kind of having to navigate in a space where the woman is already in a compromised setting. So for me, my whole thing was to not take this experience on as anything other than a capable individual, a person who's capable. I'm capable of this. I have the knowledge. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to surprise you because you're going to think that I don't know what you don't, you've already decided I don't know anything and you're going to have to do it for me. And instead I'm having to do it for you, So I think there's this narrow space that I've been in where I'm dealing with in interacting with women on a daily basis. So interestingly, I spent about 18 years at the Kennedy Center working with young artists from all over the world, mostly gentlemen, but occasionally there'd be some incredible woman in the mix. And this I got to tell you a couple of things that happened, okay? I was with one student, Howard University student, lovely voice, and this program had to do with everyone writing their own music. So we get into a rehearsal setting and now she's doing her own song. And I'm listening to these lyrics and I'm thinking, what? So I said, can you give me your lyrics written out? And I read her lyrics away from the moment where I'm just studying and I realize that this woman has been traumatized by something and she's singing it through. She's found a way to write the lyrics and make the notes and make this song about something that is so traumatic, but I couldn't tell what it was. So there was a moment that neither of us will ever forget. And this is what I love. When they don't see me as the teacher, I'm the person, I'm the woman too. We're sharing already clearly similar experiences. But it turned out that she was molested as a child. And she was fine. She was doing her best to never again, the lyrics said, never again, and all these things. I'm thinking, what is she singing about? So when I approached her about it, and asked her, well, did something really bad happen to you when you were younger? And she did. She said, my father. Okay, that's what she said to me. So it explained so much about why she couldn't just allow herself to be fully vulnerable, as you were saying, and fully expressive of that feeling. And I found a way to give her permission to do that. And it really was hard. I mean, it was like peeling back a lot of layers. But about a year or two later, I got a little note from her on Facebook. Oh, thank you for that day, da, 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 da. But what I told her was that a similar thing had happened to me. So I wanted her to understand that she wasn't alone in that experience that was still churning, and that she was looking for every vehicle, every vessel out of it to release herself from that anxiety. These are the experiences that count for one individual being able to take their own inner strength and lift themselves up out of that. So my goal is to really somehow communicate that the value is in their own strength. The value of their accomplishment and their dream is really in their internal strength, and not from the external, if I take a little bit of, those things are important. But those moments where you can really sense that you're allowing, there was another situation where another young girl from Finland was at the piano, and I'm working, la, 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 I'm doing those things, the things you would expect, right? In a lesson. But she was just crying, and I thought, well, what's going on with this? So this young lady said that her father had just passed away, and that she wanted to do all these things for him, and now that he wasn't here, and he wasn't there, and she thought she could save him because he was an alcoholic, and she thought that her music and doing all these accomplished things would save him from dying. I mean, these are the things that you realize carry, there's such a they can have such an emotional charge in it that it can actually get in the way of your accomplishment. It can actually hinder you. So my thing is to kind of go in there with an openness, my own transparency, and saying, I understand those feelings. They're not foreign to me. And tell her certain intimate things that I really don't want to share. But then I realized, wow, I feel better too. So I think for me, this engagement with young females, whether it's the neighbor or the neighbor's child or the student or the other female on the bandstand, I think that to have a strong sense of your individuality, that thing that's unique to you, and use that as a place to harness your own strength and your own strength rather, and your own what is that word I'm looking for? Your self-worth, and understand that a lot of it is there inside of you. It's up to you to tap into it. It's up to you to trust it. I can talk to you all day and I can tell you 1,000 experiences I've had, but until you start to go inside and work on that very thing that is in your way. And I'd say, get out of your own way. Just kind of move over and let yourself come through. So this is the best I can do to explain to you the experience of a day-to-day where I'm so excited when a woman comes along, because it's mostly men most of the time for 40 years or more.
Wow.
So this is almost forced a certain kind of personality. It's kind of forced a certain sort of independence, I should say, on me that I've embraced, but it certainly has become part of how people perceive me, whether that's the me I want you to see or not. That's kind of what has happened, and that's what shaped me.
But
So,
what I see, Carmen, as I listen to you, I hear you also say you come from this male dominant industry. But when you were with these two women in particular, there was a part of you that was self-assured, and you stepped aside. I don't know if it was consciously or unconsciously, but you stepped aside and you let them know that it was okay for them to be themselves. That atmosphere had to have been set for them to to just be so vulnerable. And I saw such a beauty as you were telling those stories. Thank you so very much. You probably saved lives just by opening up that space and making room for them right then, right there, to feel and go through where they were. That's commendable. That's what I heard. That's exactly what I heard as you gave these stories. I heard your song. It was really musical.
It's a constant. It's a constant because, as you were saying before about being vulnerable and naked and just walking out and you're totally naked. Yes. I think you were saying that, Mary. That vulnerability, I think, is what people love most. Mm-hmm. I think we don't want to admit it, but I think we all prefer that over the overly confident, I've got it together. I think we all kind of have a sensitivity toward the vulnerable.
We're tired of that. I got it all together, because we know it's a lie and we just don't want to tolerate it anymore. But that's just my idea. So, but that's, like I say, that's just my idea. When it comes to giving yourself permission, President Harris, what do you say to the women, the leaders in the chapter, the NCBW chapter?
Well, Margo, we know that the playing field is still far from level for women and girls. Mm-hmm. So we must continue to respond to the challenges we face. We must continue to cultivate relationships, build stronger network, and that will be key. I remember when I started my career, I was in a male-dominated field. And sometime we'd walk into the room and I'd be the only female in the room, period, with a conference room full of white men who thought that my job was to bring the coffee in. And it took me a minute to make sure that they understood that I had enough, I had value to add to the conversation, that I was just as smart as they were. But I couldn't let everything be a battle. I had to pick my fight so that when I had something profound to say, they would listen. And it took me about six weeks or 8 weeks to get them to understand that I would be at the table, that I would have something to provide, and that I was not the person who would be bringing the coffee in. So like we're doing today, we need to continue to connect and share our stories and our ideas and our insight. And we have to be proactive and have a plan of action and implement it along the way. For NCBNW, it is important that we continue to advocate for gender equity and to empower Black women and girls in the field of education, economic empowerment, the health disparities, and public policy changes that impact their lives. So as a collective body, we need to provide recommendations on how we can better support women. And we also have to collaborate by involving others in influencing the influencing process to get others to buy into our ideas and play it forward.
So we have to let women, be you a part of NCBW or not, that it's okay to, you find yourself at the table. Mm-hmm. Go to the table and dominate. Go to the table and be there. Go to the table and own it. And there are organizations like NCBW that will help you maintain, get your footing. Is that what I hear you say?
Yes, by playing our part, having our voices heard, we will ensure that social, cultural, legal, and political barriers don't stand in the way of Black women and girls reaching their full potential.
Our full potential. Those beside us and those in back of us. Mm-hmm. Mary Crafts, I know you have something to say as far as give yourself permission to. How do you finish that sentence?
I was thinking about this as you were talking, and it just came to me like a bolt of lightning. I would tell every single one of you who are listening, I give you permission to color outside of the lines. We are taught from the get-go, stay in the lines, stay in the lines. I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. If you're coloring with flex scribbling, stay in the line, do it this way, perform this way. It took me until I was 50 years old to realize that the beauty was in coloring outside the lines, to discover what was out there for me. And so by age 65, 15 years later, as I retired, and someone in a Q&A asked me, so Mary, for 65 years now, you've been known as Utah's Martha Stewart. You've been known as Queen of Hospitality. What will you be known as now? I thought about that coloring page. I was outside the lines. And I said, from now on, I shall be known as hashtag badass woman with purpose, grace, and grit. And let me tell you, in Utah, people were dumbfounded. They were like, why would she choose that? Can't she just say a strong woman? And I'm like, was that going to get a reaction just like that did? No, it's the putting a stake in the ground of I am outside the lines, and it's okay, because what I've chosen is to be the authentic self. And that's the permission I want.
Well, you wear it well. I have to say, you wear it well. Wow. Christina Wise, what permission do you give women?
Yeah, I was going to say something a little bit similar, but Mary said it so much better. But just full permission to be yourself. Like, we're all unique. We're all here for our own purpose. You know, we're all here to live into that full potential, because everyone is individual. And I just give everyone full permission, like, go for it. And I give you permission to fail, get messy, get dirty, fall down, make mistakes, you know, get laughed at, be okay being laughed at. If somebody points fingers, who cares? Just keep going. And, you know, success looks like this, you know, linear, like we start here and we go straight to the top. Success is a result of getting our ass kicked, suffering, making mistakes, being stupid, losing all of our mind, whatever it is, you know. It's like, well, I don't want to do that one again. Let's figure out a different way to go about this. And it's really the scars that tell all those stories of, and still living to tell about it, and being, you know, in a better place. And so, yeah, just, I give permission just to play full on and not give an F what anybody else thinks. As long as we're working for the external approval, as long as we care what other people think, as long as we're trying to fit in the box inside the lines, we'll never be our full potential. So yeah, the permission is just go be bold.
Go all out, be all in, be a badass. I love it. I love it. I'm looking at the clock. I want to get one final question in. We are stronger together. How do we keep these conversations going? And anyone who feels like they want to jump on it, first of all, do you feel that we need to keep these conversations going? And how do we do it? Krisstina?
You know, one thing I want to say is don't be in the sidelines or in the background. Like, engage, have a voice, ask questions, show up, raise your hand. And that's so important, especially for women, because I think we're conditioned to be quiet, to wait our turn, to, you know, just culturally, we've been, you know, subconsciously conditioned this way. And I know, you know, we all have podcasts, we all have our voices. We're doing what we're doing is powerful women, and, you know, being authentic and vulnerable and doing what we're doing. And I know I have lots of listeners, you know, because I track my numbers as well. But nothing makes me happier when somebody has the courage to send me an email, to ask me a question, to just engage with me. I reply to all my emails, and I just think it takes so much courage to get beyond reading it and actually reply. You know, that's like showing up in this online world. And, you know, the story in our head is like, well, who am I? Or, oh, why would she respond to me? She's successful. She's all these things. And so, again, there's just that habit of maybe when I'm more successful, I'll reach out or do it. It's like, no, the way you get there is to engage and just again, be bold. And so I think that's how we keep this going, is to really encourage more conversation, more true connection, because, you know, so much of those that follow me, I know it's a number, but I don't know the person behind the number, that's a like or something like that. So when there's a comment or some place to engage and respond, and that's where the energy is the back and forth, like one-way energy just goes out. It's the, coming out and going in and coming out and going in. And if we're all doing that, imagine that type of energy that then can just make a huge impact.
Well said. I believe it. I agree. Who's next? Let's keep this going.
And don't be discouraged. And don't be discouraged. You make your effort, you put 2 feet in front of the other, and maybe there's a little setback. Yeah. Oh, they said it was going to be. No, just don't be discouraged. Stay focused. And sometimes those wonderful acting, when ever notice when you're working at something, you're writing something, you're trying to create your design for this thing, and you're all over this thing, and then suddenly an accident happens, some kind of something that you just did not see coming enters, and then that becomes the force behind it. That's the part that I mean when I say don't be discouraged. It's just the act of doing it, the act of working on yourself, the act of trying to improve yourself is good enough for me, because I know that all you have to do is set that in motion and great things will happen. So, but you cannot second guess yourself. I noticed a lot of women doing that. Beautiful ideas, beautiful things set forth, and they go, oh, well, maybe I should have, and maybe I should do it this way. Just don't second guess, and don't be discouraged. Those are the 2 things that I would highly suggest to you and encourage you to keep in mind.
And Margo, what I'd like to add is that I would like to encourage our listeners not to allow setbacks to change their passion about things that they hope to accomplish and feel good about. I just remembered another poem from Maya Angelou that says, love life, engage in it, give it all you've got, love it with a passion, because life truly does give back many times over what you put into it. So as part of Women History Month, I applaud the magazine for bringing all these incredible women together who are making a difference, will continue to make a difference, so that we can continue to inspire others.
Yes. Once again, I totally agree. Mary Crafts, will you round out this conversation?
As I retired, I knew I needed a new mission, a new purpose to throw my feet onto the floor every morning and stand up. And it couldn't just be to throw a good party, or it couldn't just be anymore to show the hospitality industry of Utah. It had to be something much deeper. And I decided that my mission from this point on, until I move to a different mission, is going to be to empower myself. Always first myself, because I cannot begin to empower others if I don't first empower myself. So my mission is to empower myself and others to live a fearless life, to let go of those fears, and to discover that inner light that is just waiting to shine forth. Each one of us, as I've looked at are on this panel, are these most incredible, amazing women who have opportunity upon opportunity to mentor. So what I would say to us and all of you listening is to take your stones and keep dropping them in the pond. Keep dropping them in. Each one that we put in, each podcast I give, each speaking engagement I do, I drop a stone in and allow the ripple effect to happen. That they take that message and move it on to the world. That just, we have to keep putting the stones in one at a time, and we will make change happen. We are making change happen.
Wow. Powerful women. It's no wonder that the magazine chose you all to be a part of their first 25 Powerful Women to watch in the month of March 2021. This has been wonderful and awesome learning experience for myself. Nagalia, are there any questions? We'll turn it over to questions. Those that are online with us. I don't know. Let's see. Let me open up the chat. Do we have any? Okay. Responses are, this was so powerful. People totally agreeing. Let me see. I don't see any questions. Nagalia, do we have any questions at all? If it were me, I would have about a notebook full of questions to ask. I certainly would.
Well, I have a question.
Margo,
Yes.
if you go, oops, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Margo, if you go up, you will see a question by Dennis.
Denise, how did you build up to the trust to mentor other women? What did it take? That one?
Yes, that one.
Okay. Anyone who want to take that question? It's open. How did you build up the trust?
I absolutely would love to take that.
Go ahead, Mary.
It begins with the first principle that I decided so long ago was the most important principle that I was going to live by, and that is of integrity. And that through my career, I found my integrity to be the most valuable, powerful tool that I had. That I was a person people could trust. In my company, I would tell our salespeople, we're not selling food, we're selling trust. That our word is our bond. And if we say we're going to deliver something, we deliver even more. And we lived by that mantra, and the community began to know me as that mantra. And they knew that I was trustworthy. And so when I moved fields from hospitality to motivational, the trust was already there. It's something you establish early on in your life and you live by no matter what.
I hear what you're saying, Mary. Excuse me. I hear what you're saying. And the rest of you all, I would like for someone else to chime in on that also, because it seems to me integrity, all of you all have built your lives around integrity. You represent yourselves through integrity. Anybody else want to take that question? I see there's two more. I'll get to those questions, but if we could get someone else to chime in on that also, because that's powerful, the thing of integrity. Anyone else have a thought?
Margo, I'd like to just chime in. An organization with over 3,800 members, you got to be sure that people can see you as the leader of the organization setting the right type of leadership. Once people see that, some of them may come up and ask you to be their mentor. What I find is that you have got to be very authentic. You've got to make sure that if you say something, you mean what you say and say what you mean. Therefore, you let them know that you are willing to work with them, but you are going to work with them in an authentic integrity, with integrity and character along the way. And I think that once you can set those boundaries, it is very easy to work with and mentor young people because, number one, they know what the boundaries are and they are willing to take advantage of the time you have to give to them.
I like that. I like that a lot. That the fact that we would even bring up integrity when it seems as though we look out at the world and we say, well, who has integrity these days? A lot of people do. A lot of people do. Anybody else have something to add to that? Or I'll go to the next question. Alicia, who is a therapist, she has a question. She wants to know from each one of you, what would your 15-year-old self say to you now? Yeah. Who wants to lead that question out? She wants to hear from each and every one of you.
This is Virginia Harris. I'm trying to remember what I was doing at 15 years of age. I was an athlete. I ran track. I played basketball. But I also was an academic student. That was important to me, to be an ambassador, to read to young kids in the hospital. So I guess at 15 years old, I was giving back as an ambassador with the athletic teams in school that I was a part of, because that's what we were trained to do from these wonderful, incredible teachers that was working with us at that age group. Instead of just going to school and doing your work in the athletic, they had their teams giving back to the community. So that is where I was, that I can remember at 15 years old, giving back, making sure that it was worthwhile.
Yes. And that carried on to you now, still serving and giving and going in the community, doing these things in the community, correct?
Correct. That is correct. Thank you.
Got you. Got you. Who's next? Carmen, shall we hear from you? What would your 15-year-old self say to you now?
I was scared, okay? I'm going to tell you flat out, I was scared. But I can see myself sort of making a transition from, say, from playing, I was the little piano player girl for all the little boy groups, the Temptation kind of talent show things, And I can see myself saying, I'm done with that. I want someone to play for me. I want to be the center stage. So I think I was, we were sheltered. We didn't really get the whole, the civil rights movement came to sort of like, just somehow that civil rights movement just one day with there was school and it was just all about that. So it wasn't like this gradual thing for me. So I can remember when Angela Davis was arrested and this was like the first strong Black woman I can remember. Okay, except for what I saw on the Ed Sullivan Show. She was the first image of political voice, Black woman, proud, intelligent, knowledgeable, okay? And she was arrested. So this kind of gave me a sense of, oh, well, Angela Davis, this is kind of like, I identify with that lady. I like her outspokenness. I can remember going, okay, that she gave me permission to be outspoken. There was something about that raw, and maybe just the whole natural essence of her purpose. You didn't just get this sort of figure. You got someone with a purpose that was so clear. So I can remember thinking, well, I'm going to just decide that I'm done with that and I'm going to move on to the thing that I really see myself doing. So I think 15 was really kind of it took someone like that, someone that I didn't know, that wasn't a relative, that wasn't this familiar person, to come along and be in the world was watching. So that was huge for me. And I think that kind of to see someone else actually take charge that way was huge. I mean, it just turned everything around. So yeah, 15 was great.
Got you. And you're turning things around in this world in such a way with your music, with your art. That 15-year-old young girl is taking the reins and you are changing things in this world, Miss Carmen Lundy. Yes, you are. Oh, Christina Wise, what do you say? That 15-year-old girl, what would she say today?
Oh, that 15-year-old girl just had no confidence, was really lost. And if I was so concerned about trying to fit in and what other people thought. And I think to go back and talk to that 15-year-old self, it would just, you've got this, girl, like just go for it and, just pave your way and keep moving forward and go where your heart is. You're smarter than you think you are. You can do more than you think you can do. And don't be so afraid. And, if I would have believed those things at 15, I think life would have been a lot easier from a younger age. And, so that my 15-year-old was, that age was a lot of struggle. And it's just because my narratives, how I talk to myself, wasn't very positive.
That's very honest. That's very transparent. That alone will help someone today. So thank you. Mary Crafts, you have the last word on this.
All right. I would look at myself, I'd say, Mary, I'm going to give you a secret today that you would have taken 50 years to learn. But today you're going to learn from me that it's okay to fail. That failure is actually going to be one of your greatest gifts. And you're going to learn more from your failures than you're ever going to learn when you're flying high. You're going to learn what grit is. You're going to learn about purpose. You're going to learn about how to get back up, how to have resilience. So embrace failure. Don't be afraid of it. You're so afraid of what people think. Instead, fail every chance you get, because that means you are bringing it, girl. You are bringing it every day, and you are loving yourself, and you have courage. And that's the gift I'm giving you today, to fail. That's what I'd tell her, because she was so afraid of failure. And it was actually the thing where I learned the most every single time.
I'm almost speechless. You ladies have come. You've been very transparent. And you've given others permission to be this or to be that, to be fearless, to take your stand, to trust your voice. You ladies have opened up permission on so many levels. And then you've spoken from you as a youngster and how it's affecting you even to this day. It's like am I apples and oranges, the difference that you all see. So I myself, I thank you so very, very much. I thank you. Negalia, are we about to close this session out? Can I ask for one last question from each woman?
Yes, you can go for it.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I had every question, everything was here. Again, I thank you, ladies, for Negalia, WomELLE magazine. Thank you, WomELLE, for building this platform, for giving the liberty and gathering these awesome women, for letting me moderate this panel. It was once in a lifetime opportunity, I must say. This is true greatness. So we'll hear from Carmen Lundy, Virginia Harris, Mary Crafts, Christina Wise. Will you all give us one last thought that's on your mind at this time? And I promise that at the end of this series, a proper introduction of each one will be listed so that people know how to get in contact with you and properly introduce you. So, last words.
Gotta believe in yourself, young ladies. You gotta believe.
And
Mrs.
I
Harris?
agree. You shouldn't allow a failed opportunity to be the last time you give something a chance. I believe that I heard one of my colleagues say, you have to embrace failure, because sometimes that is the new you and what is going to be your profound passion in life.
Krisstina?
Yeah, I think I would say that, life is scary, and just because we have fear doesn't mean we have to be afraid, and to go for it anyway. Just fear, be afraid, and do it anyway. And if I were to go back to my 15-year-old self again, I think that's what I would have told her. It's like, yeah, I know you're afraid, but girlfriend, you're so strong and powerful and courageous, and there's all this greatness ahead. So just keep going forward. So yeah, the fear's okay. Just don't let it stop you.
Don't let it stop you. Mary Crafts, you have the final word on this panel.
Oh, I love the final word. Thank you. I would encourage you to use the power of positive affirmations. Our mind is just so well tuned and been educated on how to download negative stuff about us all the time. Oh, if your parents said, oh, we're not very good with money, we don't get ahead in life, everything's always a problem. But those negative tapes just continue to play, because the subconscious, the ego, it doesn't know the difference between a lie and truth. So you have to replace them. I was from Iowa, and I always used the word wash. I'm going to wash my clothes. When I moved to Utah, they would ask me, they'd say there's no R in wash, in wash. Like, I don't say that. And I finally heard it in my brain, what my brain was saying to me. And I learned that if I positively replaced it every time I went to say it, I could change my habit. So now when I wash my clothes on Saturday, I washed them. I no longer wash my clothes. You have the power to change your taste. You have the power to change the synapse in your brain with positive affirmations. I had a Post-it note on my mirror for 10 years as I was going through change. And now I still put positive Post-it notes up. But mine said this. It asked myself every day the question, what will you do today, Mary, if you are no longer afraid? Every day when I would get out of bed, I'd look at that Post-it note. I'd think through my day. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have that. I'm supposed to be going to this networking event, but I didn't know if I'd go because I might walk in there. I might not see anybody I know. I might be stuck all by myself. I'd look at that Post-it note and I would think, damn girl, you are going to that event. And you're going to walk in there and you're going to talk to people. You're going to walk up. You're going to engage them. Use positive affirmations. Put them everywhere you know. Set the life you want. You are in the driver's seat.
25 powerful women. Women to follow the month of March 2021. And I venture to say, follow these ladies the rest of your lives because the best is yet to come. This was the first panel discussion for She's Possible, sponsored by WomELLE magazine, which is a women's leadership magazine. I'm Margo, Lovett, the creator of the podcast, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation, inviting everyone back tomorrow. We will be here tomorrow with another panel discussion. It will take place at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Be sure to find the link and register again so that we can usher you in another great group of women, 25 powerful women to follow. This was wonderful. I applaud each and every one of you ladies. I bow to you and God's grace upon each and every one of you. Negalia?
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I learned a lot. I just sit here and listen. And thank you. That's all I have to say. Mary, thank you. You almost make me cry. Uh, President Harris, I learned a lot about you, and I can say that you touch me in every possible way you can. And I'm grateful to learn a lot about you. And Carmen, you just rock it, girl. Krisstina, I don't know what to say because you've been through so much. And I thought I went through a lot in life. And just reading and listening to you, now I realize that I still have a lot to learn, a long way to go. But I know that for sure I am not alone. And I'm grateful to know every single one of you. And trust me, I'll be reaching out when I need it because I will be needed it. Thank you. And thank you everyone for being a part of
Thank you.
WomELLE. And I love you all.
Thank you.